Welcome everybody to InnoVibeHub. I appreciate you guys inviting me to come and speak here, and it is my pleasure, and I'm always happy to do this and talk a little bit about some of the stuff I've been doing for the last 20 years as a test automation architect. If you see this picture along with any one of the major social media platforms, that's probably me. It's a pretty good chance it's me. I'm pretty active on X or Twitter, whatever they're calling it these days. I'm on Facebook, Pinterest, a little bit on it's Snapchat and TikTok, but mostly I'm on YouTube. And you can find me at Paul Grossman, the Dark Arts Wizard. Yes, I try to put all the letters in there. So the V is the big thing over there. If you want to email me and talk about test automation, you can send it to thedarkartswizard@gmail.com. Don't forget the "the." If you take off the "the," you're going to be talking to somebody else that ain't me. I've written a book on test automation. It's Enhanced Test Automation with WebDriver IO, about unlocking superpowers of test automation. It is WebDriver IO is a automation framework that is out there in JavaScript and TypeScript. And the reason I did this is because I wanted to learn more about TypeScript. So if you guys have an interest in seeing that's the book over there. I was told I could talk about that a little bit. I've got 15 chapters over there that talk about everything from like the installations all the way to all sorts of cool things like running on cross environment testing. And almost everything I'm going to talk about today is something that's written in this book. So, and you can get it on a PDF, but just to be sure that I'm not faking out, it actually comes, you can also get it on a physical book out here, and it's all sorts of cool stuff. All right, that's enough of me trying to pitch my book. We'll go back to the real stuff over here. A little bit about me. I have been a test automation architect since 2020. So it says 22 years, 24 years, give or take. Started in a medical device manufacturer with X-ray machines, and I've gone through all sorts of different companies, floor delivery companies, video game rental, and even worked for an Illinois University survey company. If you have ever heard of Freakonomics, the guy who came out of Freakonomics, and his story, if you read his book, comes out of NORC. A fun guy to go check out his book, Freakonomics. Read it; it's a lot of fun. Saw him present it a few years ago. I'm getting off track. Let's get back on track. I worked for 16 years in Micro Focus, HP. It's now OpenText, who owns UFT, QTP. I still have their original Windrunner disk over here, including a license that I could run on a virtual machine. Today, I'm not sure how useful it is, but it was C++ at the time. However, it had no pointers, so the joke was we called it C++. Worked in Selenium Cucumber, which is Java, for about 3 years. As I mentioned, I worked in JavaScript and TypeScript and wrote a book just so I could learn TypeScript. I have been a project manager, an nested architect for a very long time, working with a lot of people under me. And I work with all sorts of tools. That's what WebDriver IO. These three over here, TestRigger, TestSigma, and Fireflink, are three codeless automation tools. I'll show you some code today and also show you some codeless. So if you want to stay a manual tester and you don't want to learn a language, I'm going to show you how to do that today. Does that sound cool?
Sounds great.
Awesome, guys. There you go. You got some response over here. Get your coffee ready. If I bore you, let me know. So moving on. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the myths in test automation, something that someone may have convinced you is true, which it is not. And the first thing I want to tell you, as I mentioned, I worked for a X-ray manufacturer, but I am not a doctor. Never got a doctorate degree. My mom wanted me to be a doctor. All I got was lousy handwriting out of that whole deal. I worked for a floral delivery company. I'm not a florist. I worked for an insurance company. I've never quoted a policy or fulfilled one. And I worked for a mortgage company, but that's the only place where I was actually doing good. I actually have a mortgage. It's a 15-year mortgage, and I've had it for 30 years. I don't know how that's worked out, but I'm pretty sure I'm losing money on that deal. Lastly, I worked for a women's intimate apparel company for a while, and in that case, there was nothing fit. Oh, I think my son put something on this slide. He's trying to joke around with me. All right, cool. All right. So the point of that is have a little fun and take up any challenge if someone says it can't be done. These are our lessons learned. I'll talk a little bit more about that. So even if you don't know anything about the company that you're being placed with, it's okay. In test automation and in manual testing, when we start, it's click a button, and then you're going to learn more and more from your coworkers, the people who are building the software, the developers along the way. So don't be afraid to go and check out whatever company it is. Don't look at it and say, I don't have any experience working with an X-ray machine. It's okay. Second thing I learned is that you can't do it all. Doing it all is you can't do it all by yourself, and we'll get to that a little bit in a moment. First thing to learn about when you're working in test automation, everybody know what Hello World is? We've all done that, right? Okay, good. I got a little bit of shaking some heads. Has anyone done the Hello World of test automation? Did you know there was one?
No.
No. So it's very simple. The Hello World of test automation is these 4 steps. Enter the username, enter the password, click the submit button, and verify you're logged in. That's Hello World in test automation. The interesting thing is in some languages, the code might actually execute, like in JavaScript or TypeScript, in the reverse order, and then you get validate you're logged in, click the submit button, enter in the username, and enter in the password. And then, of course, everything fails, and you're trying to figure out what is going wrong. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of the issues that you may come across when you are working and deciding what programming language you've got. There's going to be a day that if you're building a framework from day one, is that you're going to find your first defect. But that day comes about 3 months into your project. I've had it happen to me many times where I've just pulled my hair out going, why can't I figure out what this bug is? What is wrong with my framework? And I realized for an hour and a half, the framework's been telling me, I found something that's not working correctly. And I've been trying to tell you this. And you've been trying to fix the framework. That's the day, I would say you become an automation engineer when you realize it's not your framework. It is your framework's actually finding a bug on your system. So keep an eye out for that. That's going to be your big first milestone when you realize your framework isn't broken, it's your application. Never wait for your company to buy the tools you need to know. This is something, I've got it over on the right-hand side. I've got JetBrains Toolbox. Now, I'm not trying to show off or anything. I just found a really great deal from JetBrains. About middle of the pandemic, I'm out of work, right? I'm not trying to spend any money that is not useful. And in the middle of that, JetBrains posts this big sale. It says, for $20 a month subscription, you can have every single programming language that's there at. And I realized I didn't know what my next project was going to be. So if I have the programming language that has Python or WebStorm or whatever the language was I was going to learn, this was a great deal for me. I pay for it out of pocket. Certain things I do pay for out of pocket, and I justify it because if I already know how to do this stuff because I paid for it out of pocket, I'm going to get myself a better job that pays better. There's a lot of people who tell you all you need to do is have, don't pay for anything, always go with open source, and that's the best thing. I'm going to tell you, I don't agree with that sentiment. And in particular, I'm pretty sure, let me ask you guys, has anyone here used Eclipse? How many of you used Eclipse? I got 1, I got 2, okay, and Subi, all right. And the rest of you, I'm not a fan of Eclipse. Has anyone used Visual Studio Code or IntelliJ to do their coding?
IntelliJ.
All right, you got experience with both tools. Is there? I already told you what
A
my
little bit.
personal experience is. Which one do you guys like? Who's what's your which IDE do you like the best?
For the coding part, the Java, I like to use like Eclipse, but for Selenium automation, I use IntelliJ mostly.
I get that, and I respect that. I'm looking for at the moment because I know I've got I the darn thing is hiding on it. There it is. I do have Visual Studio Code that I use over here, and I, as you also saw, I do have all the JetBrains tools. JetBrains has had something that's really cool that they kind of stole from another another company. They kind of stole it from Cypress and another website, where they actually take the browser and they embed it into the IDE. So if you're trying to build your page object model and you're kind of jumping to your IDE, you're jumping to the browser outside of it, it's easier with something called Aqua from JetBrains because the browser's inside and you can actually interact with it. It makes building your page object model a whole lot easier on this. And by the way, this is my automation project over here from the book. So if I were to say I'm building my page, here's some examples. There's an object with a list objects, select options. Building this in IntelliJ or WebStorm, if you're working in JavaScript, is a whole lot easier from the JetBrains perspective. Second thing is, look for a good deal. As I mentioned, this is $20 a month that I pay out of pocket for everything they have. So if Python is the next thing, keep an eyeball on it. Just look for stuff. Also, look for, if you're going to pay for something, search on the internet for discount codes. Always take the extra time to do that. You can save yourself 10, 20, 50%, depending on what's available to work out there. Not every idea is a great idea if you are a lone ranger. Has anyone been the only person on their automation project? Anyway, that's the right answer. Nobody said yes. So that's cool. All right. I encourage pair programming because working with two other people, you can bounce ideas off each other, and someone will say, that's not a great idea. I tried it a year ago. It didn't work. And it also allows you to write code more and better. But if you are the only person on the team, your coworker might be a robot, an artificial intelligence over there. And there's a whole bunch of stuff out there. There's ChatGPT, Find.com, U.com, Copilot. Gemini is a new one that's out there. They just changed the name. My lesson over here is just make sure you get yourself a guru. Humans are really great, but if you have to, don't be afraid of AI. Does anyone think the Terminators are around the corner? They're coming to get us or take our jobs. Anybody? Nobody? Nobody raise their hands. That's good. But let me ask you this: why do you not think they're coming to get us? Is there any proof that you can have that says AI isn't the killer that a lot of people out there think it is? By the way, I'm interactive, so any reason you have that it would not be, it's not coming to take us over?
I mean, I personally believe if you use AI, it makes you better at your work
It
and
does.
whatever you do.
Yeah, and there's actually good uses for it. I'm going to tell you why I personally believe AI is not coming to end all of humanity. And that is because the darn thing can't solve a Wordle. You can ask people and they'll say, I'm pretty sure it can solve a Wordle. I've never tried it, but we are testers. And I guarantee you, I hope every one of you guys goes and launches Wordle today and types in all the letters and see if it can remember that the middle letter is supposed to be an E and it's supposed to be 5 letters long and get you to solve it very quickly. I have not yet seen it do that. So don't worry about automation until it does that. Then I start to get a little worried. So I also like exactly what you said over there. Is that it helps you do stuff. So what is the one thing when you're coding that you absolutely hate to do and you push it off to the end? How about
Code
documentation?
review.
Code review. No, we don't push code reviews to the end. We're an agile process here. We're gonna definitely go over and review our code, and hopefully with a developer who can give us good ideas. Hey, you can do this better.
Most companies have restrictions. You can't put your code in the open source.
Sit down with a developer and ask them, are they using Copilot? Here's one thing. We are developers. We're all developers. Don't let anyone tell you different. And one thing that I tell people is, if I'm a developer and I don't have the same rights as the developers do, you're shooting yourself in the foot. It's not feasible to have an automation project. If they have admin rights and they can install whatever Chrome extension that they need to get their job done effectively in order to make the company money, I should have the same rights. And I'll fight for that, tooth and nail, to the point where I'll find another company. I'll find another job that will actually have that in there. Also, if you already heard me kind of bragging about my computer. It's an MSI, high-end computer. If you are an automation engineer and you see the developers and they have 2 or 3 monitors and you have just the one and it's small and it's got less RAM and less CPU, get out. Go find another job somewhere else. Because as an automation developer, you should have the exact same things that they get. Honestly, that's the biggest problem I have over the last 24 years is trying to convince somebody. I had a client I worked for, and they gave their developers 16 gig of RAM. And I said, okay, I need to develop an environment. And they gave me 3 gig of RAM. And it took them 8 weeks to be convinced that 8 gig of RAM isn't going to be able to run Windows and Outlook at the same time. And we do put a lot of stuff on our computers. I think it's more than what developers do. So you'll see a couple of tools I'll show off over here. But the one thing I was saying was, what is the one thing you push off to the very end? And I kind of let it slip. Documentation. I hate documentation. I have to sit there and write the whole thing. It just takes so much of my time. I could be doing something more. But you know what AI is really good at if you get the approval to do it? Have it document your code. Let me show you something kind of cool here. Off the screen, so it is down here. I'll bring it up back over here. We're sharing that over here. So I've got a thing that says normalize element of this type. I don't have a lot of documentation on this. I am going to go over and bring up a browser, and I'm going to go over to let's go to Find. I like that. I haven't tried him in a while. So let's Find, ask me, document this code. It's basically looking at it, gives me a nice little header, normalize the given element, and gives me a little bit more description of everything that's on there. I could also use it to follow a coding standard.
I was going to ask, so you don't document as you go, you document afterwards?
I would love to say I do that. I don't. I'm lazy. I would love to say it is a good best practice, but in the reality of the world, a lot of developers don't document as they go. And worse, they write these awful mysterious error messages that pop up. Instead of giving a selection, it's saying, hey, you should probably use strict code. So it actually added in there. So strict code will say, hey, you need to declare your elements before you go describing them in JavaScript. You're fine that you've got bad interface design stuff. About Face is one of these from by Alan Cooper. Talks a lot about, this is kind of old. Windows 95 is, that's the latest version. It's old. But it's really got good stuff about how to do friendly element user interface design in order to keep your company working with customers and bringing money in. All right, let me get back on topic over here. I was saying, let's see, that this can change my document this, change this into a better coding. I learned to do better coding because it actually describes, here's all the stuff that I missed when I did this. And the last thing I always like to use test this is to rewrite in Python. How much time do I have to learn to rewrite in Python? Dismiss. And it will give me, this is the exact same function, but now it's written in Python. It's done. It took me a year to write that book. I'm going to write a follow-up in Cypress. It will probably take me less than 3 months because I'm just taking the same code and changing it into, JavaScript is Cypress, but other frameworks in order to handle it. I'll actually translate it into Java and have really good documentation there. So those are the 3 things that I use AI for. You did make a really good point, Amy. I believe you said, they don't let you put your code out there. That is true. Really, the advanced companies who are going to be sticking around for a while actually have AI tools like Copilot installed locally in-house. So that would be the first question to ask: is are there any AI tools that are local rather than software as a service outside? And do the developers have access to that? And if they do, tell them, give me a license because I can do things better and faster for you. So that's my best answer for that question. It's absolutely totally valid what you're asking about. I just fight for it.
I believe we do. We use Copilot and Codium.
Yep.
Yeah, that's for developers.
Don't say that's for developers. We are all developers. If we're touching code,
Yep.
We are developers. Don't let anyone tell you you're not a developer. I don't like being insulted. I've been doing this for 24 years, and developers have insulted me quite a few times, saying, no, you just do record and playback. I know what you do. It's not development. I'm like, dude, I do a lot of code development. I do a lot of solutioning, and I try to do it efficiently and effectively. Point over there is that I actually do have, let's see, I have chat over here. I've got Copilot sitting over here. So I have it inside. There's a couple of samples here. Write hello world. I asked it to write hello world in Python or translate it. And there is also cool stuff that you can do. If I go to Copilot, start inline chat, recommend, spell very well. How in the world did I become a developer without spelling very well? Oh wait, are we recording this? Oh yeah. So it's kind of give me some updates and stuff. Another tool that's really good. You see it? It's a little gray, but you see it says Paul Grossman 15 months ago alphabetized. You see it? GitLens. It's called GitLens. And what it does is that I have all my code stored up on GitHub. And this is telling me exactly who wrote the code. Well, I did it. How long ago I wrote it. Almost a year and a half ago. And what was the push that it was pushed out in. This is fantastic if you're using it. Get yourself GitLens, install on your code, and then you can see if you're working on a project with multiple people, you can see exactly who touched what, where, when, and if it's suddenly breaking and you find something that's changed, you can go back and say, let's go fix that really quickly. All right, that's my recommendations on AI and stuff like that. I did say a little earlier that the WebStorm and something called Aqua stole something from another place. And then that I'm going to let you know. One of the things, if you don't find coding all that interesting, there is a trick to learning it. And that is just to have a little bit of fun. This is a site out here called Coding Game. I highly recommend it. If there is one of 22 different programming languages you want to learn, you can do it for Coding Game. And they embed not an IDE or a browser, they embed a game inside of it. And then you get to write code, and you want to learn something, you write it in here, and then it executes this, which makes the game run. And if you're able to destroy all the robots over here with the code you wrote, you basically learn a little bit more. And if you fail to do it, once you complete one, you can take a look at what other people have written, different ways to do it. It's a lot of fun. So I would say check out Coding Game. Well worth your time. As I said, 22 programming languages, all current, that makes it fun to go and, it's 25 now, 25, 26. And helps you, keep it fun. So I understand some people just aren't into coding, but you want to get into code automation. So the way you can do it with plain English. We'll talk a little bit about that in a little while. All right. I think I will say
It's actually
that.
pretty cool.
Yeah, I share all sorts of cool secrets, man. The bottom line is everything. I'm going to tell you a quick story about this. When I worked in my first automation project, I worked at a medical device manufacturer made X-ray machines. And one of the things the developers came to us and said, we think the system might be eating up memory. Can you prove that? And I used a quick automation tool that just went and clicked on the X-ray and then dumped the patient and then clicked on the X-ray and dumped the next patient. Did that over and over again. And within 7 minutes, I was able to run out all the memory on the system. And they looked at it and they fixed it. And they brought it back. Okay, we patched it up. I ran it again and it ran out of the memory in an hour and a half. So they came back and patched it up again. They're like, okay, we pretty much got it. And we ran it for 8 hours and it ran out of memory. I kept finding these memory leaks on the system, and they were like, oh, I'm pretty sure we got it. But I got a little street cred on that. We finally got it running 24 hours a day, day and night. There's one system just dedicated to do this. The next time they come up to me, they said, is there a way to see if we have a corrupted image? It's supposed to be a skull, but it's actually a badly tuned TV. It's all staticky. We see it here or there. And I said, sure, I can try this. And we had picked it up once. I put it onto one of our systems, and it was basically a 4-line system that just said, take an execution code, take an acquisition. It was a simulator, so I wasn't really getting irradiated or anything like that. And it would check the image to see if it had a badly tuned TV. And if it wasn't, it was a skull, it was great, and it would do it over and over and over again. And we were running on like 5 different systems, and one of them popped it up, and I went, this is great, let me go replicate it. And I ran it for like 3 days, it wouldn't replicate. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've lost all my street cred. And they said, we can't really have all our systems shut down while you're trying to find this. We have to have all the automation going. Like, okay. So I set it up again on one system. Everybody got on and started pushing a lot of data down the line. And suddenly we got it off a different system. It came back and says, hey, I see this badly tuned TV. And long story short, turned out our company had the second largest internet connection in the world at the time, 2000. And it was basically clogging this pipe because we were using high resolution DICOM images. And we were just jamming it all down there. And then if we couldn't fit all the image down there, one of the developers somewhere in the code said, I'm just going to chop off one little bit and shift everything over. And the skull became a badly tuned TV. I was able to replicate that, and then I got my street cred back. I'm like, this is great, fantastic. And they came back to me and they said, we see one more thing and we can't duplicate it. Sometimes the doctors will say the system boots up, but it doesn't come to a ready state. A ready state means it would count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It would get to about 88, and then it would show you the application front end, which is great. If it went to 89 and it got to 90, it would just sit there and spin 99, 99, 99, and that was bad. So they said, we think it has something to do with the reboot. Can you reboot the system with your automation? And I went, well, I can shut it down, but I'm not sure exactly how I can get the power back up once the power's off. But it turned out what we had was a universal power supply, which would detect if the system was down, and it would send what we call a wake on LAN command. I don't know if that's still in a thing today, but because everybody's computer's on 24 hours anyway. But it would restart the computer. So I had a system, my script that was in the startup folder that said, okay, I just started up, increment a number, save the file, and shut the system down. And it would shut down and come back up and repeat that. What turned out is that every 63 times we rebooted the system, it came up to a bad state. And I actually had a developer, I came by the next day and I said, look, I'm going to replicate footage. I want you to reboot this system 3 times. And he sat there, rebooted it 3 times. And sure enough, on the 3rd reboot, it sat there and spun and spun and spun. And he goes, and I heard this on the other previous ones. They said, I think it's that automation tool that you're using. That's the cause. We didn't make a mistake. And from the back, from the first two things that I found, I heard the developer who looked like Jim Carrey. I don't know if this is relevant to the story or not, but he came over to me and goes, Paul, I believe that you found something, and we're going to talk to that guy, and he's the new guy, and he's going to go find it. And if he finds it, he's buying you lunch. And I'm like, okay, cool. Sure enough, they found it. There were 3 developers that had contributed to this issue. One had set a count up timer, reboot timer, starting at 1. Second guy said, I'm going to go increment that, but if it gets to 63, it might actually someday overrun the memory location, so I'm going to reset 63 to 0. And the third guy says, if this system is ever set to 0 reboots, don't do anything, we're in a bad state. That's how we found that. But that reboot, it came out to be only the system, the issue was kind of low level. Because, every 63rd reboot, these systems are on pretty much 24 hours a day in the hospital. What kind of harm is that going to be? The doctors can just live with it, which is great. As luck would have it, a week later, after I found this and wrote the ticket, and it's at the lowest level, it's the pony level. They're going to fix this after I get that pony I wanted in 1983 on my Christmas list. The hospital that I actually worked at, I told you my mom wanted me to be a doctor. I did a little bit of volunteer work when I was a young kid. At the hospital I was at, they were teaching the doctor how to use our new equipment. And the time that they were teaching him on how to start it up was the 63rd reboot. To make it easy, basically he turned on the light and the light bulb did not come on. He was mad. And he says, get this stuff out of here. I want your competitor, and don't even think about charging me for this equipment. Do you know how much an x-ray machine might have cost a hospital back in 2000? Any guess? I had to take a guess at it. Anyway, take a guess. Anyone at all?
Around 250,000, right? Yeah.
250,000. My estimate was $1 million. $1 million on that.
I would say 50,000.
50,000? Yeah. They're freaking expensive. They're over several $1 million to get that installed into a hospital. Wow. And when I showed this to my boss, I said, hey man, I just saved the company several $1 million. And by the way, there's these other 5 things, this RAM leak, this corrupted image, all this stuff could have lost us a customer. So I'm going to say each one of these things that have become set to its high priority, because that became high priority right away. Why don't you give me 1% of the $1 million I saved you on each one of these guys, just as a bonus? And they said, we really appreciate you finding those defects, but there's no way in hell we're going to pay you that. Within 3 months, I was working for a different company, but it was a great story. The point of this is focus on potential cost losses. It was a long time getting there. It's less on how many defects are found or how fast you wrote a test cases or how many test cases are written. But when you find something that's not working right, how much money is the company losing when that is in there? And that is your ROI. That's the easiest way I can estimate ROI. You can look up on the internet. Everyone else has some other goofy way to do ROI. I just say, I found this defect. You would have lost $1 million, and now we fixed it. And people tend to listen to you when you do that. Well, my managers do, most of them. Management might focus on the cost savings that increase loss risk. So you don't want to be focusing on, hey, does the color blue come up the right blue? I don't care. It's not going to lose company money. Is the transactions through the credit card working? Is PayPal working? Yeah, that's the problem. All right, next thing is pictures, or it did not happen. Can anybody tell me what picture I have here? What is that thing?
It's like a giraffe over the clothes.
Oh my God. That's a really...
it's something in the water.
It's a thumb.
It's a thumb. We have a thumb. We have a giraffe. That's cool. You're not giving the standard answer, which is the Loch Ness Monster. So I want to ask you guys, you know when that picture was taken?
Is that X-ray?
No, it's not an X-ray. We're off the X-rays. This is a picture of the Loch Ness Monster. It was taken. The picture was taken in 1933. 1933. And here we are 90 years later. No one's ever taken a second picture of it. But they sure get a lot of people visiting. You want to know what it really is? I'll show you. It's a freaking elephant. That is an elephant's
Oh,
trunk.
I was close, not giraffe.
And we know it's an elephant.
Yeah,
because
you almost got it.
I liked it. We know it's an elephant because when the picture was taken, there was a reward put out by a man who said, if anyone can take a picture of the Plateosaurus that has survived for millions of years on the shores of Loch Ness and take a picture of it, he'll pay them, it was like $10,000, $20,000, which in 1933 was a ton of money. It was millions of dollars in that time. No one's ever taken a second picture of it. We know it's an elephant because the guy who put up the reward was the owner of a circus who was going through Scotland and letting his elephants play in the water. But take it with a grain of salt. I learned that on the internet. It's not always correct. My point is, take a picture of what you got. If you happen to see something like this, error file not found or error 404, this is my website. I will talk about that in a second. If you see something that's highlighted in red, and you go look at it, take a picture of it. You may not know what it actually means, but show this to a developer. They'll look at these numbers like the 200 means it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. But you see something in red, 404, 403, 506, 503, it means something went horribly, horribly wrong. And this is actually coming from my website. If you want to test a website, here's a fun one to go check out. So what Candy Mapper is so I decided I wanted to have my own website that I could test against. I pay for it out of pocket again. This is GoDaddy, so it represents any a good majority of websites that are out there that are using that are doing e-commerce. So it's exactly like an e-commerce. It has a little challenge over here. Use your automation tool to click the X button up here, and then populate the contact field. Contact field is somewhere down on our front page. Put in your name. Hello, I'll say hello. I don't know what we have over there. And then click the send button and you'll get an error message that says, please enter a valid email. You put in a valid email, me@me.com, like that, and you click send and you get sent off to another page so that you can validate, thank you, we'll get back to you within 48 hours, months, years, stuff like that. I do this because these are some of the things that are out there that most companies, their websites are internal and you don't get a chance to really test with them. I intentionally put in bugs into my systems. In Candy Mapper 2, these are all fixed. So we'll say if I click on Find My Candy, we'll go over here. I have different things for a path. You can go to a Halloween party, say I'm hosting a party, find out more, do the zombies, and then if you get to see this screen, it means you went to the site correctly. It has Candy Mapper also has a few bugs in it. It has all Halloween theme. If you like Halloween, it's kind of cool. By the way, if you want to see some of the stuff I do or hear me chat more about some of these stories, you can go to the Test Guild with Joe Colantonio and just look up the Dark Arts Wizard, and you'll happen to notice there's a repeating pattern here. The Halloween Special 2023, Halloween Special 22, Vampire Teeth, it's the Halloween Special. It's the Halloween Special. If it's in October, it is going to be the Halloween Special. It's me yammering about decomposing test cases. This was also on in that week of Halloween. So if you want to learn more on podcasts and stuff, check me out over there. And the very first one I did, I talked about a lot of the stories, some of the stories I just kind of covered. And we talk about the 5 different secrets of automation, most of which are still good today. Let me jump back over to Candy Mapper. If you want to test on other sites, I have set up everything like a Facebook site. Hopefully it doesn't go over here. You can hit the Candy Mapper Facebook site. I go crazy on this whole thing. Just Candy Mapper has a LinkedIn site, so it actually takes it to my stuff over there. But I do this just to kind of, it just makes it fun for me. I've got YouTube and all sorts of other stuff. And you can write your own scripts to kind of navigate through. And we just recently added to join us. You can actually add in emails and passwords and sign in and reset passwords and create accounts. I don't collect any of the emails or stuff. You will never hear from me respond on this. I don't sell it to anybody. And I think I mentioned it repeatedly on this whole system here. So it's not I'm trying to collect or anything or make any money off it. I just do it just because I want to give people something to try. And in fact, one of these things is, if I go launch Candy Mapper, you know what this is? This is a spinner right here, right? Now, how long do you think that spinner is going to take to before it shows up my application?
Forever?
Forever.
Yeah, you got it. It takes forever. I gave it away. It never stops spinning. If I go to Candy Mapper R2, though, as I said, all the bugs in Candy Mapper R2 are fixed. So if I go over here, this will take about 35 seconds to load. It's slower. It's a little bit faster. It won't take forever. And the image is a little bit different color. Should not impact everything. But I take 35 seconds because by default, almost everybody says, hey, you should wait 30 seconds for something to appear on your screen, which is a crazy number. It should be 3 seconds. You should have what we call a service level agreement that says page should respond in 3 seconds to your customer. And I thought that was at least 35 seconds of me talking about how wonderful this is, but maybe I'm going, there we go. It finally came up, the spinner, and then you could validate that, hey, this is our fake application. It doesn't really do anything. This is all it does. But I like to do that in order to give people the opportunity to, try and test all sorts of stuff. Again, my book goes through some of these things to try and figure out how you can go and interact and solve some of them. And we got the code out there as well. All right, let me go back to, where was I? If you find something like plan a party. Oh, yes, the point I was going to make of that is, let's go back and I'm going to go plan a party over here. I'm going to do the Halloween party. I'm going to go attend a party. Oh, wait, I'm too scared. I'm going to go back. And what do I get? Error page not found. I got over here. What I can do is I go inspect. And you see a bunch of red over here? This is stuff that you want to be showing to your developer. If you see an error 404, grab a screenshot of this. And that's a picture of the Loch Ness Monster or the Bigfoot that they'll be very appreciative on that. And you should also screen capture both the passing and a failing state so you can show it. I've been yammering a bit. Any questions on anything that I showed out here? That's 5 seconds. Nobody's asking questions. I bored you all. Oh, all right. Let's move on. I mentioned this earlier on. If you're a dev, you should match your dev specs. I mentioned that 8 gig isn't enough. If they've got 1632, I've got 128 gigabytes of RAM on this system, which means I can open up about 150 tabs on my Chrome browser before it starts to sweat, which is not really a good idea. Your CPU should be as good or better or as good as your developers. If they're giving you a Core i5, send it back. Tell them I want to match the developer statements because I have more heavier things that are going to be working on this. Has anyone ever heard of CrowPath?
I have.
Yeah, but we work together. I told you about that. Anybody else?
I know.
This is one of those Chrome extensions. They'll tell you you can't put it in there. No,
Is that Sandeep, right? The creator.
The guy, Sanjay Kumar, is the guy who created CrowPath.
Yeah, Sanjay.
Yep, and he used to work for the company that created CrowPath. Is still out there, but it's really not a thing anymore. Selectors Hub.
Created test studio as well.
What is? Yes.
Test studio, right?
Test Studio. I've got it. I actually have it installed over there, and I think I also have it on one of my many, many tabs that I had. There's Selectors Hub. This is a great element to put into your object because you can go and into your browser because you can go and it's not turned. Yeah, it is. You can turn it on over here, and you can go and copy all sorts of different XPath and CSS selectors. Another secret about test automation, 99% of what you'll do is in XPath. Anyone who tells you that CSS is faster has never done any automation engineering. Gosh, Subi, don't you tell me you told anybody that. All right, I'm teasing Subi. I'm sorry. If he did.
Wait, using XPath is faster than using other locators?
I'm not saying it's faster. I'm saying it's more reliable. It's more reliable because what CSS, 90% of the time, you're going to go look for an element like install or something with text on it. Let me go. We have over here. Let me go click on this. You're going to look for something that has some sort of text inside of it. And XPaths, if this is got, did I actually? I don't think I actually did the view source. I want to inspect. And you know what, the darn thing, they updated that thing. Where's that? Inspect. There's inspect. There we go. He hides around there. All right. So 99% of the time, you're looking for something based on the text that you're looking that you want. You want a button that has Test Case Studio, and if I go and see that element over here, I'm going to see it. I think it's in the text over here. Test Case Studio Pro. As far as I know, CSS can't find an element based on that text. It can find anything else. If it's by an href, target, any other stuff that is completely almost non-useful, it can find it. Like data ID. Here's a nice random number that will change every single time this gets regenerated, but it's not useful. CSS is faster for one thing, which will come to me momentarily. I do use it for absolutely one thing, which I believe is just counting elements. And we'll talk about that in a minute, why I do that. But everything else, it's almost always going to be XPath. Yes, it's faster. CSS is faster for 1% of the time you use it. Just basically go with XPath on that. Learn that. It'll do you much better. And Selenium over here, Selectors Hub gives you all sorts of cool stuff that you can do. One of the trickiest things, I'm going to go show you one other thing since I got a little time here.
This stuff is good when you are working, right? When you're preparing for interview, I recommend you try not to use daily.
I'm going to let you in on a little secret on the interview. I generally don't get accepted on interviews because I bring them up. They'll give me a test. They'll say, okay, try to alphabetize all these characters. Try to find the repeated number of characters AA inside this string. And it's crazy stuff like that. And basically what I tell when I'm on the interview, I ask them, are you going to ask me about XPath or CSS? Because that's what you need to know day to day. I'll tell you, I have never had to capitalize all the letters in a string and sort them alphabetically left to right and look for the count of how many ZZs appeared in it. It is the worst way of doing technical screens, and people they get the wrong people. All they get is developers, really good developers. And you know what? Developers don't want to be automation engineers. They hate our field, mostly because we crap all over their babies. They're like, your baby has 6 fingers. Let's get it to 5, and it'll look great. And also, I do try to say it nicer on that. I do not try to be in an adversarial position with my developers. So, Noreen, I absolutely respect what you're saying, and everybody's going to get an interview like that where they say, try to, figure out random numbers or something like that, which has absolutely nothing to do with automation. And me, as a top-level person, I'm not going to sit there and go, yeah, I'll do it. If I know it, I'll do it. But more than likely, I'll point out and say, hey, I'm a test automation architect. Were you going to ask me a question about something that will really show my skills? And that's building a CSS and XPath, or building a regular expression, or identifying some sort of object on the element on the page, or something like that. And almost always they go, no, you got to do this technical screen. I'm like, you're looking for the wrong dude. You're looking for developers, not SDETs. So if you want to come back and talk to me and give me an exam where I'll show you how well I do my stuff day to day, absolutely. And Arian, also go check out all the YouTube channels that say, here's the secrets of the automation interview questions that you get, how to solve them all, and practice them. Write them in your code, your developer, or ask ChatGPT to solve it for you beforehand. Almost all of that stuff is online. Okay. That's my little rant over there. The point I was going to show over here was if I go to Candy Mapper, let's go to that broken one. And I've used up almost all our time, I think. My gosh. If I go to Candy Mapper, and I'm going to go back to that little example where we are going to go look for launching Candy Mapper over here.
I liked your website, how they are responsive on mobile view and the website.
Well, thank you. It's all GoDaddy. I wrote 5% of the code that's on this site. I wrote this. That's all I wrote.
You chose correct one.
Or in fact, I didn't write it. ChatGPT wrote it a couple of years ago. My point was, let's say you want to catch a spinner and you need to catch the locator of what this looks like, but it's going away too quickly. One of the cool things inside of this is you can go to Selectors Hub over here, and I'm going to go close this out. It's saying, hey, why don't you just use it from inside here? I'm going to go click on this and bring it down so I can see it because I think it's hiding on me. Where are you hiding? I can see it really small, and it's just
this is actually interview questions they usually gives.
And yeah, that's a good one. Looking for what's how to know what's computed. If you know how to look at layouts and stuff, that is definitely something to keep an eye out for. I'm going to go to Selectors. There's Selectors Hub. So here's a cool thing. I can go and click on, it says debugger. If I click on this, in 5 seconds, this will pause the website and it pauses the debugger. If you can get it to pause while this is spinning, it's really easy to pick up and then start looking for a spinner object out there. Which is really cool. Now, maybe the spinner goes away in less than 5 seconds. We can go back over to, and this guy hides on me all the time. I'm not a big fan of that. Let me close this out, close something out here, and go find this guy. Network. This is recording slide house. I think he's hiding over here. Snippets. No, he is hiding somewhere else.
You're looking for network?
No, I'm looking for Selectors Hub.
Selectors Hub. Oh.
It hides on me, and I'm not a fan of the way that thing works. It's probably hiding under here. Dang it. I'm going to go just do this. I will go back to Selectors Hub. We'll go back and inspect. I will go to over here, accessibility, Selectors Hub. It's always at the end. And if you need to pause the thing faster, go to the customize over here and change this number to 0 or 1. And then if you hit the debugger, you'll instantly pause on that. So if you can get your mouse cursor over to Selectors Hub and click on that pause, when this spinner comes up, you can catch it and take your time to watch for it. Sometimes the spinners sit there forever and sometimes they don't. And it's the best trick that I know out of Selectors Hub. Okay, lessons learned. We are developers. We have identical processes, all that stuff. We should have the identical specs that we're working with. This is just a little snippet of Selectors Hub that I kind of just showed you live and how it can find all sorts of elements. In fact, there's a thing called Test Rigger. It'll find a path. What if you could just find an element just based on the word Google rather than an image or an alt or any of that stuff? Would that be kind of cool if you didn't have to write all this crap? You didn't have to write CSS or XPath? I think it'd be cool.
Yeah.
Your ID is important. I kind of mentioned this earlier on, so I had it out of order. Talked about VS Code, IntelliJ, WebStorm, and having your browser. This is the example I said is Visual Studio. This is Aqua from JetBrains. It actually has the browser inside of it, so you can write your locators very easy. I love Aqua. Get lessons, whodunit, we talked about that. Add-ons, you can put in Copilot, I showed that. And I guess the lesson there is you don't know what you don't know, so don't be afraid of AI.
What is the Aqua is doing, Paul?
Uh,
It
Aqua
shows you.
has the browser embedded
Okay.
into the IDE, so
How
it's
do you see the elements? Is it behind? Oh, okay, below, right there.
yeah. You can go and spy on these elements because this is all inside JetBrains Aqua, and you can spy on this element, and then it'll automatically build the locator for you in your
Wow,
page object
that's
model.
phenomenal.
It's an IDE for us, test automation engineers. For the developers, yeah, they don't need that. We'll just have it as a separate browser. This is
So
what
we
we
can
need.
we add to IntelliJ as well, right? Or only?
Yes, and in
Yeah.
fact, I think they don't even refer to it as Aqua. Last time I saw them do a demo, they didn't even mention Aqua. It's already built into most of their development tools. But that's the name, Aqua. Go find it, and this will make your life go a lot easier. Great question, man.
Does Copilot helps with the console error or some or
Yeah.
local errors?
Copilot's good for trying to find if your code is crappy. It'll give you recommendations, and you can use Copilot to look through their entire code base, which is the one problem I have with UFT. I mentioned I did QTP stuff a long time ago. In fact, this is the golden book of QTP. If anyone's working in QTP, UFT, it's called Unified Functional Tester. The thing they don't tell you about UFT is the U stands for Unified. It unifies Quick Test, Professional, and Service Test. Ask anyone in the field if this does API testing, and they'll tell you UFT does not. And yet, Joe Colantonio, the guy who has that chat thing, wrote a whole freaking book about how to do API testing with UFT. The only problem is HP, Micro Focus, and even OpenText has never advertised that fact. That is the reason why. I'm sorry, that was actually the wrong book. That was just the book that has, this is the one that's got the API on it. So if you ever find a job that you're working in UFT, grab the API testing manifesto from Joe Colantonio on that. But as I said, that company doesn't know what it's doing. They're not advertising. They're always like, oh, no, you can't do API with just regular. You got to use Postman. Postman is the automation tool. And we only use Postman because UFT doesn't do API testing. Wrong. They're just not advertising it. Okay. Enough of my getting old.
Is
Because
that
Postman is
open?
most commonly used.
Yep.
Yeah, is that open source?
There's another question. No, UFT QTP is a paid product.
Oh, that's
It
why
is.
not popular.
It is the one exception I have. Like I said, there are some paid tools out there, open source. There's a little chapter in my book over here I talked about that there was an open source tool which was called. Do I have the bookmarked on it? It was an open source node project. It is Faker. Has anyone heard the story of Faker? Does anyone know what Faker does? Ever heard of this? Faker.
Never heard of
So
it.
Faker is a node library you can bring in, and it will generate fake credit card numbers, social
Oh,
security
yes,
numbers,
yes.
all sorts of
On
stuff.
Java library, right?
I think they have a Java library version of
Yes,
it, and they
yeah.
also have a Node library, Node.js library.
For test data management.
Okay. The short story of that is Faker version 665 was the last good version, and then the developer went nuts. He was not sleeping for a very long time, and he was pretty sure the black helicopters were coming after him, and he decided, since he wasn't making any money off of Faker, he put out a version called 666, which does not work. It just puts up a message that says something like, the black helicopters are coming for me. And there's a whole story behind that. I'm not going to get too deep into it. The fact is that particular project stopped at 666. A lot of people got just their projects ended, and they had to take over. There's the version on Node.js is called Community-Faker. You can Google that story up. I don't have time because I'm already over with you guys. And I still want to show one more thing as we get over here. This was our GitHub desktop demo. This was using GitHub to go and find stuff. I'm going to move on that. Always have a source control tool. If they say they're not doing any source control, don't take the project. For so long they said my automation tool. People use GitHub on every other project, And guess who doesn't support it? UFT. Crazy. That's why they are no longer a thing. Used to be number one in the market. Now they're, I don't know, nothing. A little bit of heresy, accuracy. Take accuracy over speed. As someone's going to tell you, you got to use headless browsers. Why? Because they're faster. Same guy who told you about CSS is faster is giving you more advice. Headless browsers are the worst because you will find you cannot drag something on the screen. Man, I just jumped to the next thing over there. So if someone tells you got to use headless browsers for speed, take accuracy over the speed, because you switch to headless browsers guarantees your scripts are not going to run, and you're going to spend more time trying to figure out how to get your scripts to run with a headless browser. Only use it if your clients are actually using headless browsers. And I don't know if anybody I've ever met actually uses a headless browser, because you can't see what you're going for on Google and to go buy your stuff from Amazon. Running in parallel. Once you start running scripts in parallel, you'll have Selenium Grid. I'm pretty sure someone's mentioned that to you. The downside of this, you're probably going to be able to run a maximum of 5 browsers. Remember, they might give you the crappiest low-end system. You try to run 5 browsers on a system with an i5 CPU and 4 gigs of RAM, you're not going to get anywhere. And they're going to ask you, why can't you get this done faster? Because you didn't give me equipment that I can use to be useful. All right. If you get a high-end thing like my system over here, you're running it in the cloud, you can probably get away. I think the most I got away with 12. And it was just a really honking, lots of RAM, lots of CPU after I complained. And they went, okay, I can get 12 browsers to work at the same time. And then some of them tried to log in with the same credentials at the same time and it started knocking other ones out. And then you started getting some false positives, which is another thing you got to deal with. Then they'll tell you, oh, just retry the test cases. So they execute at the end, which your suite might take 4 hours to run, and it fails at the beginning because it's trying to log in with the same credentials. At the end, everything is done. Then you got to rerun the failing test cases. Just be a little cognizant of how many browsers you have out there and how much RAM and CPU you've got in order to do that. Speed is not our primary goal, regardless of what whoever says it. Your primary goal is validation and detail. Make sure that you can validate what you see, you can get end-to-end, and you can verify the company can make a sale with a credit card, rather than, hey, can we log in with only 2 credentials and run 25 test cases at the same time? It's not going to work. Programming languages matter. As I mentioned, I started with C++. VBScript is slow, but it's quick to write test cases. Java is fast, but it's dense. And semicolons matter. JavaScript, it's so fast it can time travel. That's the one where I said you can execute test cases out of order. First thing you're going to learn with JavaScript or TypeScript in WebDriver IO if you happen to go that route. Semicolons don't matter, though, which is kind of cool, I guess. You can put them in, you can leave them out, don't care. And then we got NLP, Natural Language Processing, which is plain English. The lesson learned out of this is I always go with something. Go ahead, Ahmed. What do you got? What's your question?
Yeah, I have a question about the TypeScript and JavaScript.
Sure.
I want to learn to TypeScript, but is it true that to learn TypeScript, first I need to learn JavaScript?
It's kind of true. Yeah. This is actually TypeScript, but TypeScript is a flavor of JavaScript. And basically what they said was all the Java people looked at it and went, okay, I see the semicolons. That's great. It looks like Java, but you don't have to declare what your element is. You don't have to say this is a particular type of thing. This is, in Java, you have to say, hey, this is a string over here. Sting. It's a sting. It's a string. That's basically at the highest level. This is the difference between JavaScript and TypeScript. This is a TypeScript where you are assigning the class of the element to everything that you've got over there. If you're working in JavaScript, you don't need it. You can just leave it off. And Java developers are very picky about how things are declared, and they will just go all over you and say, "Why? That's crazy. Why would you do that? I hate it." I understand it too. I totally get it after writing that book. And that's one of the reasons I was on, as I said, I was on JavaScript for about 2 years, Java for 2 years. Then I did JavaScript, and then I went to TypeScript because I too got a little saying, oh, I like TypeScript. I like Java. I like the organization on that. Does that answer your question? Do you understand it?
Yeah.
Did I? All right. Great question. And like I said, ask away anytime. Of course, the downside is the more code you have to write, the less time you have to write test scripts. And this is a really good example of here's Java 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 or 8 lines of code. Java takes 7 lines of code and 283 characters just to go click the add to cart button. If I do it in VB script, that's basic. That's 4 lines of code, 136 characters. If you're writing less code and less characters, you're going to write more test scripts. That's just basically it. Python's a little more, 6 characters. If you do it in UiPath, this is essentially an image-based tool. And if we are doing JavaScript, it's 3 lines of code. But if you do it in plain English, like with Twist Rigor, you could just say click add to cart. And it'll go, I found the add to cart. It's right there. I clicked it. It's kind of cool. Of course, you can write ChatGPT, use ChatGPT to go write your Java. So it kind of helps on this whole thing. But 2 years ago, 3 years, 10 years ago, it was like so much code. Everybody loved Java, but why is your automation framework project going so slow? Because I'm writing so much freaking code. I forgot the semicolon. Oh, I got to go find it. Mm-hmm. Next thing is wrap everything. Create. Don't do an object.click. Don't do this. Don't say object send keys. Don't say object select visible. Write your own wrapper for click and pass it an object that you can do cool stuff with. And in fact, I also write a highlight out there so I can see exactly which object I got. Everybody goes, highlights are so slow. Has anyone ever heard that? Don't do highlight because it's really slow. Anybody heard that? It's kind of a
highlight means you give Java script focus.
You just put it.
It shows where is your item.
Yeah, you're just doing a border around it. You're doing a border 2x, 3x pixel. Yeah, you're actually kind of changing the website. So it's a highlight around it. But has anyone ever? Nobody's ever heard that that's kind of slow. Okay, that's good. It's finally dying. Thank you to QTP because they're the ones who had the highlight flash 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. You sit there and try and highlight an object and wait 3 seconds for it to pop up. I wrote my own code to do the highlights. But anyone who says it's slow, it's because of QTP. Thanks, guys. I'm glad they're not being infected anymore. You definitely want to give yourself flexibility. Write your own versions of code. And I'm just going to mention it once again. I have all those different things over here in my helpers for doing clicks and all sorts of stuff. What did I want to say over there? Oh, we're getting back to it. Last thing is page sync. When you're working in Selenium, well, almost the last thing. When you're working in Selenium, you have a implicit and an explicit wait, right? Everyone's learned that? I don't use any of them. I never use any. You mix the two, you'll end up with a wait that will sit there for 5 minutes. It's crazy. Pick one or the other. Don't try and mix an implicit and explicit wait in Selenium. But me, I don't do it. I do this instead. This is basically, if we were to walk through the code, I count how many divs are on my page. And then I do have a wait. This is my wait. I never wait more than 1,000 milliseconds. I'll count, I'll wait for it, and then I'll cycle back and I'll count this again. And basically I'll ask, is the number of elements that I counted more or less or the same as the elements that I just saw on the page? Because your page is kind of building. So I have this page sync that will count how many elements are on the page and then count it again a quarter second later, because a quarter second is very, very fast. And you got 4, you got 8, and you keep counting until the number is the same. 15, 15, 15. You get 3 15s in 3/4 of a second. 99% of the time, your page is built. You can move on, and you inject that into your into your code, you inject that into your click button. So every time you hit a click, wait for the page to build with how many elements are out there. Again, that little secret. Control find. Again, this is up on GitHub. Page sync Cool thing is I've got it all written over here. So we're recording this. So I'm going to very slowly kind of go through so that the code is actually copied into there. It's a little bit fancier than what I was kind of describing. I kind of gave you the four things. But it's basically a loop that goes around looking to see if it timed out, if there's no such element or couldn't find a page, and essentially waits for the page to have anything. There's my, as I said, this is my only CSS here. Find me all the elements that are visible, or in this case, not hidden. So that's my CSS. That's the only one you'll ever need, or I've ever used. Everything else is an XPath. And just go find the visible spans or divs, either way you want to do it, and loop around 3 times. And once the number count is the same, break out and exit unless you threw an error somewhere. And you are basically good to go. You could even time how long it takes for the page to build. Sometimes that's useful in your output. Tell somebody where the bottleneck is. I already talked about spinners earlier on. I talked about explicit waits and the different way that I do it. You can ask devs to add a page flag. This is actually updated now. There's a thing called data QA. Has anyone heard data QA? Ever heard that process? So data QA is a custom property in the elements that the developers will put in there that they promise on a contract with you. I will never change this. I may change the class of the element. I may change the ID and all that stuff. Yes?
The guys know that as data test ID.
Data test ID. Everyone's going to have a different way of finding that.
Yes.
But
Same
that
things, the name.
That is fantastic. If you're on that team like that, you are in the future and ahead of the game. Stick around because you got great people who are working, great developers who are actually working to help you get your automation project working better. Let's see. So I'm at my last thing. I'm going to do our last demo. I know we're running almost half an hour late. I hope I haven't bored you guys, but I want to do one more thing, which was NLP, no code test automation, so that you can click on add to cart. I'm not sure why that stuff wasn't in there. We're not going to talk about this because we don't have time. I want to go show you a demo of Test Rigger out here, and then we will wrap it up because I probably talked just too darn much this time. This is Test Rigger out here, and this is my InnoVibeHub test suite. One of the cool things I did out here is I created a whole bunch of tests. By the way, I did this just about an hour and a half before this presentation was done. Not that I pushed things to the last minute, but I certainly did with this. The way I did this, I used generative AI. These things are like checking the password reset process is good, verify the user login is there, each one of these did it. And the way I did it is I clicked on this button, said generate AI tests, and I said give me 25 test cases that will test something in my feature description. This is a generative AI prompt, and the better the prompt, the better the test scripts it comes up with. So I can say, I described what InnoVibeHub is. It's a destination for a blend of minds and crafts. They host events, and they have an active community on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And they also have a address and email on their site. And I basically said, go build me some test cases. And I did 25. This guy comes back and says, verify event creation, display functionality, verify social media, verify contact information, and just hit generate the script. Didn't have to write a single line of code. No XPath, no CSS. So if you want to be a manual tester and you don't want to learn all this stuff, here's the freaking shortcut, man. While that's in progress running, it's actually running all in parallel. I'll talk a little bit about that. This is what it looks like, because these are the steps that got written over here. First, it said, go log in. If I had some credentials, it tries to figure out how to log into the community, into the project. You don't even have, you do have to set some credentials, but every login is different. 95% of the time, the thing just figures it out going, okay, I'll take some credentials and I'll go try and log in. It goes and says, click join the community, click forget password, enter a unique email, and sorry guys. Stop that. And it's plain English. And if you don't believe me, I'm going to show you what this guy does over here. This guy, I'm going to go zoom. I think I'm already actually all the way zoomed in. This guy said, click the join the community. Join the community over there. He figured out this is a clickable item, and it had the word join the community in there. I just clicked on it.
Wow.
Forgot password, click on forgot password. It figured it out. And this is just, it's generate. I didn't write any of this. It just said, I'm going to go generate a unique email. There's a unique email with testrigger.mail. It will, if you have to send email back at you, it will pick it up, and you can pick up like two-factor authentication. It's just, and I won't even have time to show you all this cool stuff. And then you can enter that email into it says please enter your email or mobile device over there. It doesn't have to be the whole word. You could just say enter your email or something shorter. It'll figure it out. You can also do relative element location. It says enter it into this field here that is below this text over here. It says I found it here, I entered it here.
That's cool.
It is super cool. Takes screen captures every time. And what was our other thing? You can data drive this. You can have it call your phone. You can check on the Facebook over here. And like I said, and you can also do, I said I wanted to do live mode. Not only can you, right in there, you can have it go and interact directly. There's also a TestRigger Chrome extension. They built this because a lot of people, as you heard, I can't put a Chrome extension in there. It's, oh my gosh. Now, do your automation faster. Okay, if I can't put this in as a Chrome extension, we'll add in a live mode over there that will go and basically hit your website. And then I can just go say, click events. Let's see what it says. You know, it came up. It's the IE. The IE is the AI is not all that great. It does find a locator for this, but I'm going to show you something else. I'm going to say go back. So I'm going to go back to your front page, and I'm going to go say click. I can write it and write my test cases. I'm going to say click events. Like that. I gotta spell it right at least. Events. Okay, I spell it right. Events. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna say event. I'm gonna intentionally screw this up. So it's event with a lowercase e, not even the whole word. Let's see what happens. Is it gonna find it? It picked it up. It said, hey, here's your events.
Perfect.
Check page. And this is my last demo because everybody's tired and like, Paulie, stop talking. You have bored us for an hour and a half. You said you would only go 10 minutes over, and now, check page contains mentorship. What is it? Couldn't identify the element for page mentorship. Did I misspell it? Check page. Oh, contains. I forgot the word. Contains.
Yeah, you tried to put an exact match.
There. No, it wasn't an exact match. It's just I forgot the word contains. But it'll tell you if you screwed up. And you can data drive this. You don't have to use CSS. You have to use XPath, and it does just freaking everything. Does API, does testing on mobile devices, SMS phone call testing, and all you need to do is know your verb, and then whatever kind of click you want to do. A double click, right click, long click. Click it a couple of times. If it can't identify it, if you have a website that's made out of Flutter doesn't have any elements. You can tell it to go find elements by optical character recognition. You can enter stuff, you can type stuff, you can copy and paste, and even record video of what you did. In case you want to do that, you can reset the app, you can drag, drop, swipe on an API, you can mock an API, grab your URL to verify that's there, you can send email, return email. You can, please don't blast anybody with email. And by the way, it does have a freemium account. You don't have to pay anything for it. The cool thing is you can run tests in parallel, but if you go and check it out, you can start your own account and start playing with it. It just gives you one instance, so all your test cases don't run in parallel. It's just one after another. But a lot of companies will buy 3, 4 of these things. And all right, last thing I'll say, the environments. Remember, I said that there is the biggest challenge in automation is you run 5 browsers, but you have limited RAM and CPU, and it might suck it all up, right? That's a challenge you might come up with. These guys, basically, one browser, one instance of a virtual machine. All the RAM, all the CPU is dedicated to that browser. So if one of them starts sucking up the browser, if you start sucking up all the RAM, it's not going to kill it. It basically is just a one-to-one thing that makes it reliable. And it also doesn't do, it can do headless, but don't recommend it. We just don't advise doing headless automation. Hey, that's it because I went so long on some of the other stuff. We're not going to be able to talk about a mortgage company. No, guys, I got to tell you about this. Last story. I'm sorry, Subi. I used to work for a mortgage company. I think Subi might remember that. I don't know.
Paul was my lead.
Yep. So he knows which company I'm talking about. He may actually remember this story. This is a true story. It's Friday afternoon. My manager comes to me and says, "Hey, we're acquiring a brand new company, and we're hiring 150 new employees, and they're going to be starting Monday. And we need to verify that their email, their first name, their last name, their employee ID is correct, and their phone number. And we have a database of this, and we need to validate all that stuff." It's about 600 data points, and we have to do it before Monday morning. So on Sunday night at around 11 o'clock, everybody's getting online. It's all hands on deck. All the manual testers will be there, and we think by 3 o'clock in the morning we should be done. About 4 hours, we should be able to find, test, and catch every data point over there. And they said, "But Paul, nobody wants to stay up to 3 o'clock. Could the automation stuff you're doing in Selenium, in Java, could that help make this go faster?" And I said, to build all the page elements and check this out, I don't even have something that can drive from a data table. I'd have to build that. And by the way, this is 2 years ago before ChatGPT was a thing. So I'd have to write it myself. I said, I probably won't be able to get it done by Tuesday, and you guys want it done by Monday. It's not going to help. But I used TestRigger. I said, let's try this. I grabbed their TestRigger's system. I gave it was 5 lines of code. Go log in, validate these 5 things, and then go to the next one and try it again. We found one defect immediately, which was that if you typed in the last name of the person, the search would go, I found it. I don't know who you're talking about. Paul G.R. No, the guy doesn't work here. First defect I found. So in the first 15 minutes, I wrote the test. Second 15 minutes, I wrote the defect, submitted to our developers. Third 15 minutes was data driving all this, because I only did it with one user, then I did it with 150 users. And that's all I really had to do. The night of that session, we got on at 11 o'clock at night. Everybody's online. I ran my scripts. We ran 5 of the browsers at a time, and the 6th one had the wrong email, and we fixed that. The whole thing is that within 90 minutes, we found 75 more defects. We fixed them in real time. The developers took care of it, and everybody was in bed by 12:30. The upshot of this is that you don't necessarily have to, in automation, it'll tell you don't do one-offs. What I just described to you is a one-off. Don't waste your time doing something that you'll never do it again. Look for things that are repetitive. But with this TestRigger approach that I did, I could do a one-off anytime. It was not a problem working on that from 4 to 5 at the end of my day, and then getting up at 11 o'clock to help everybody make sure they got into bed. It wasn't a big problem. So low-code test automation actually means you may not have to skip one-off projects. You could probably leverage it to make things go better. Hope you guys enjoyed everything. If there's any last questions, please shout out now.
Do you think, Paul, thank you for a great presentation. I really enjoyed and learned some new tools. Do you think that this codeless automation is the end of the Selenium, Java, and JavaScript? What do you think about it?
It is not. Even this stuff over here that I was showing you, one of the things that we'll tell you about under our resources and documentation, if I do JavaScript, if there's something that these guys haven't figured out, and as I said, there's other tools. JavaScript, if I do that, you're still going to have a developer. There's going to be something that we've never thought of to do. Or they haven't thought of to do any of these tools, and they're still going to have okay, let me let you execute some code out there, and you still need the high level developers to do this. It does save us some money because we're not you're not going to have as many SDETs like me. You can my boss was like, we'll just hire twice as many manual testers and let them do this. I'm not a fan of that. I want to keep developers on the team in order to solve stuff like this. These are the same questions I got 20 years ago when I became an automation engineer. Is it going to put the manual testers out of business? Are the manual testers still working today? Heck yeah, they are. The automation is going the chat GPT and all the AI is going to put the developers out of business. Did it do that? Not really. They just learned to use a new tool. It's like changing from using a pickaxe to tear up a street to using a jackhammer to tear up the street. Same job, just gets it done a whole lot faster. Same with this. It is hard to convince a developer that this is actually useful. By the way, 4 years ago, I was not a believer in low-code test automation. And almost any developer you talk to, I wouldn't put it past you if you looked at this and went, wow, that's the goofiest stuff I've ever seen. Can't be real. I was like that 4 years ago. I've worked with a couple of different tools. There's a few of them I like. They're not really pulling it off. These guys surprise me almost all the time that how much they can do without ever having to go into CSS, XPath, or that. And you're just basically writing it. And they've got generative AI now. You can have the AI figure out what you want it to do. You tell it, populate this page. It'll go, okay, I find a bunch of elements. I'm going to populate with random data. It's crazy, the stuff that's out there. No, it's not going to put developers out of the business. We're always going to have Selenium developers. We're going to always have all the other automation tools out there. Just keep an open mind to everything that's out there. It's a great question. Thank you. Is that answer? Are you cool with that? What I said?
Yes. Especially you mentioned that 15, 20 years ago manual automation comparison. That's good.
It's still coming. Someone thinks it's going to happen, so it never does, man. It never will.
Anyone else have more questions to Paul? And I also like to appreciate your time and great presentation. Always fun to talk to you. It's been a long time I haven't chatted with you.
It has been a long time. We should get together and hang out